So let me show you the steps to start a queen size hand knit chunky blanket. First thing that you want to do is to take out the tail of your yarn and make a slip knot. This is how you get your first loop started on your chain. To do this, you are going to fold around your tail, pull the working yarn through, and then tighten it. You want to make your loop about 4-finger width long. From there, you will pull the working yarn with your 2 fingers, like this, through that first loop. And same thing, you want it to be 4-finger width long. Keep doing that until you have 32 loops or 32 chains. The 32 loops will yield about 48 inches of your blanket. That will be the width of your blanket. Just make sure that your loops stay consistent in size. Remember, the first row of your blanket, which is like the 32 loops, the base of your blanket, the loops are a little bit bigger than the rest of the loops that you are going to create once you start making the blanket going upwards. You don't want the bottom of the blanket, the very first loop, again, to be tight, because once you start going up, that blanket will turn into like a V-shaped blanket. So you don't want the bottom part of it to be tight. Again, you want it about 4-finger width in diameter. After you have created the 32 loops, now you are creating the 33rd loop. The 33rd loop is actually your first loop on your second row for the blanket. So instead of going to the side on that 33rd loop, you point it upwards. And then you will start creating new loops going towards the opposite direction of that first row of loops, or I guess we can call it chains, that first row of chains that you created. So I always say I'm not good in describing this, but if you can just follow along with my fingers on how I am doing it and how I am pulling from the bottom chain, just pulling on that working yarn through, creating another loop, and you will do that all the way to the end. So from here on out, you actually want these chains or these loops to be about 2 to 3 finger widths in diameter. Remember, the bottom loops, they are about 4 finger widths in diameter. Now, the rest of them will be 2 to 3 finger widths in diameter. You don't want it too big, those chains, because then you will have some holes in your blanket. And you don't want it too tight and your blanket is going to be too small. So again, this is very repetitious, but once you get the hang of it, it goes really fast. Just pulling through those working yarns and then doing this all the way to the very end. And then so now when you reach the very end of that second row, you will just create another loop on top of that last loop or that last chain right there. Just pull the working yarn through that last loop, and then you will start creating some more chains going towards the other direction. So it's just like that, almost making a zigzag direction. When you reach the very end of the blanket, you go towards the other direction. And that is how you build the blanket going up. I have also created several videos showing you how to connect the yarns together whenever you run out of yarn. I also have another video where I have shown you all how to end or finish up the blanket. So hope you all watch that and you can follow along so I can show you more chunky knit blanket videos.